Good morning and welcome to our CBI webinar about dried mangoes. We're so excited to have you with us today. There are almost 1,000 people who registered for this webinar, and that shows us that it is definitely a webinar that is of interest to you all. We hope to be able to give you the information that you came for. We hope it's going to be useful to you. And without further ado, I'm just going to introduce myself very quickly and tell you what it is that you can expect from us today. So my name is Tonia Dabwe. I am the founder and CEO of Guide My Growth. Guide My Growth is an online consultancy providing support to businesses mainly in developing countries about increasing profitability, growth, and getting funding. And I am your host and moderator for today's webinar. As I said, we're going to be talking about dried mango. But before we go into that, I'd like to walk you through a couple of the basic housekeeping rules that we have for GoToWebinar. Please note, we cannot hear you and we cannot see you. If all goes well, you can hear us and you can see us. You cannot hear or see each other. But if you run into audio problems, the first recommendation is to log out and log in again using the link that you received in the email. If that doesn't work either, you can call into the webinar using the phone number that you found in the email as well. And don't worry, you're not making an international call. It's a local call, so you can still participate without it costing you too much. Finally, if that doesn't work either, still no need to worry. We're going to record this webinar and we're going to send you a link to the recording at the end of the webinar so that you can review it at your leisure and at your convenience. We are also going to be sharing the slides of our presentation and basically all the presentations that we're going to be showing today. So in case you get thrown out or you miss something or you have to leave early, don't worry, all the information is coming your way. We're also going to be sending you a link to the dried mango market study that we did, and you're going to be able to review that study and get the additional information that we are not able to share in the presentation because of time limits. We are going to be running a couple of polls, just one or two, because we have a lot of information to share to get to know you a little better. You will see the poll come up on the screen and I'll ask you to fill it out. If you have questions, please use the questions tab on the right under the GoToWebinar menu to ask your question to us. You can ask your questions at any time. Our team is here ready and waiting to receive your questions. We have two Q&A sessions during the webinar where we will be answering your questions. The first Q&A is a very short one, so if we don't get around to your question, don't worry. We're going to get around to it in the second Q&A. Having said that, if we get a lot of questions and seeing the number of participants that we have, we might indeed get a lot of questions. If we run out of time, we will extend the webinar by a maximum of about 15 minutes to try to answer as many questions as possible. Again, if you have to leave early or if you cannot stay for any extended time period, you're going to receive the recording, so don't worry, you're going to be able to get the answers. Recording the session is about dried mangoes, or else you wouldn't be present. And that just gets me ready to move into our very first poll, which I'm going to launch now and ask you, please tell us, are you already exporting to Europe, yes or no? Okay, I'm seeing the answers coming in. A lot of no's. About 75% of our attendees has voted so far, so I'm going to leave it open for just a few more seconds to allow those that haven't voted yet to vote. Thank you very much. And I am closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. So what do we see? These are the results. Most of you are not yet exporting to Europe. We hope that today's webinar is going to give you the information that you need to know, what you need to take into account to export to Europe. And we have some I think, some very good news for you. At least I hope it's going to be very good news for you about a potential buyer that might be interested in what you have to offer. So stay tuned. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. You're going to have to wait and hear the information in the webinar. So as I said, we're talking about dried mango today, exporting it. We're going to be telling you about the latest consumer and buyer trends. We're going to pay particular attention to the legal requirements regarding food safety, for example. And we'll also tell you how the markets are developing, which markets we think are going to be the most interesting in the coming years, and where the biggest opportunities are for you. We'll also look at the main competitors, just mention them very briefly. Again, you can find all that information in our market study. And we will be hearing directly from an exporter and a buyer who are going to tell us how they worked to export dried mangoes to Europe, and as a buyer, what they look for in potential suppliers. So throughout the presentation, you're going to be getting some practical tips, and please do feel free to ask questions at any time, because yeah, we're here ready and waiting for you. Allow me to pass the microphone to Jeanette, who is from CBI. She's the program manager for dried mango. And Jeanette, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tonia, for your introduction and the nice bunch of cliffhangers you have given us. Okay, a warm welcome to all of you. It's very good to see so many of you being tuned in for today's session, especially from many countries and a very high number of registrations. Apparently, I was looking at the numbers and then I thought there must be a very high rate of competition for dried mangoes. And for sure, the speakers for today's discussion can go deeper into the topic of competition. For those who do not know me, my name is Jeanette Scherpenzeel. I work as program manager for CBI, and I'm responsible for our dried mango project in Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast and Mali. Okay, today's topic is about dried mango. My 15-year-old daughter, she loves dried mango, but she's very picky in her choice. It needs to be the exact orange color, very nice orange. The texture needs to be mushy and still sturdy. And the taste needs to be sweet, but not sugary. She's a very picky customer. And that's not an exception. She's not an exception. In the European market, the quality needs to be high. And that's all for today's topic. Will be extensively discussed. Okay, let me first kick off by a few notes about CBI for those who do not know the organization CBI. CBI is a Dutch government development program, and we believe in development by developing business. Our focus is to support small and medium companies to strengthen their economic, social, and environmental sustainability through export to Europe. In short, we believe that when small and medium enterprises in developing countries grow, if, for example, you double in size, you will be able to hire more people who will have an income and thus contribute to poverty alleviation. We are, okay, so it means that if you have a higher income and you take care of good wages, fair prices, it will result in development. Good. So for today, the CBI panelists will share their knowledge about the European market for dried mango. When preparing for the webinar, there were coming a few questions to my mind. And one of them was about the trends. I was just wondering, there's been an ongoing demand in the European market for the past decade. But what about the supply side? Because if the supply side, when you look at all these 1,000 companies registering for this seminar, if the supply side increases faster, is there a risk of oversupply? And what about the COVID pandemic? What was the effect of it? The past 1.5 years here in the Netherlands, we've been staying at home. So what happened, I went to the shop and I bought dried mango, which I didn't really buy before, because I feel that I want to have a little bit more of luxury. So is this reflected in the data? And will this continue for the coming days, for the coming years? So that were just some thoughts I had in mind. And it shows I'm really looking forward to the expert panelists who will give us more insight based on data, based on the market, and based on their real practical experiences. Now, without further ado, back to you, Tonia.
Thank you, Jeanette. And I understand that I'm seeing that my screen is not yet on. It is now. Thank you, Jeanette. And I understand that you are one of the big consumers when it comes to dried mango, or at least your 15-year-old daughter is. In terms of the trends that you mentioned and the developments on the European market, I think now is a perfect time to start to introduce our experts, today's experts. So may I invite Aleksander, Olivier, and Ties to join me on the screen. There you are. Welcome. And Aleksander is the director of Autentika Global. He's joining us from Valjevo in, sorry, I keep confusing them, Serbia, just to check to make sure. And Aleksander is a market research expert. Aleksander, may I ask you to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tonia. My name is Aleksander Jovanovic, as you already told, and I'm a market researcher and consultant specifically for the products belonging to the large group of processed fruit and vegetables and edible nuts. This includes frozen fruit and vegetables, dried fruit and vegetables, juices, purees, frozen fruit, and different types of preparations. So I work in this field for more than, I think, maybe 15 years or even more, and I'm officially, I have a university background also in the same field as a fruit growing and processing fruit engineer, so this is very shortly.
Good to hear that. Our next panelist is Olivier Orphelin. He is the Director of Procurement at Whitworths, and he's joining us from, I have to spy again, Earthlingburg, I hope I pronounced that correctly, in the UK. Whitworths is the largest UK brand for dried mangoes, and they were one of the first companies to develop the market for dried mango in Europe. And they were the first to develop a high-end brand for dried mangoes as well. From the Philippines, I believe it was. Olivier, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Tonia. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Olivier Orphelin. I'm the Procurement Director of Whitworths. I've been working there for 4 years. Whitworths is the largest importer of dried mango in the UK. And as Tonia explained, we are the largest brands in the UK as well, both generally speaking, and on mango. My background is also coming from retail. I used to work for Tesco for 7 years. So I've been buying these products for quite a long time now. So I hope I can bring you some information as to how you can sell your products into businesses such as mine.
Okay, we look forward to that. And based on what I'm hearing with all your tasting experience, you can also tell us which type of mango is the absolute best when it comes to taste. I'm looking forward to those recommendations. Next up is Ties Minnen. Ties is a managing partner of AfriFruta, and he's joining us from Eindhoven in the Netherlands. AfriFruta is the largest dried fruit and coconut producer in Mozambique, and they are the only country, if I'm correct, in Southern Africa that is producing organically certified dried mangoes. Wow, Ties, tell us a little more.
Thank you, Tonia. Yeah, so I'm Ties, and AfriFruta is based in Mozambique. Myself, I am based in the office in the Netherlands, the sales office. We've been busy for about 5 years now, so not too long, not too short. I'll tell you a bit more later on.
Okay, looking forward to hearing more about that. Thank you for these introductions. Thank you, Jeanette, Olivier, and Ties. May I ask you to switch off your cameras as we move to Aleksander's presentation about the dried mango market study. Aleksander, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tonia. So I will very shortly try to introduce the most recent developments in the dried mango market. Some of them can be quite general developments because we see a lot of sustainability requests in all food segments. And we will talk a little bit about the market requirements before we move to talk a little bit deeper about some interesting markets for you. So some main trends that we see in the market can be general, not only for dried mango, but for many types of food, and they include sustainability, unfortunately increasing freight rates, especially from Asia, influencing the prices, and increase of at-home consumption, especially because of COVID-19 influence. And about dried mango specific, we see also sustainability initiatives. Some companies are trying to develop special ethical connection with the sourcing countries. Healthy snacking trends is developing and continuing in Europe. It already started several years ago. And clean label, like free from pesticides, free from additives, etc. trend is continuing, and we see some new product launches that use dried mango as ingredient. So let's start with the first one. It is sustainability. I think that around 5 or maybe a couple of years ago, when we talked about sustainability, it was kind of a side topic, and we talked to suppliers from many countries that they can promote their products as sustainable only if they want to target some special niche markets. Now sustainability is becoming really mainstream trend. And for example, one recent research revealed that almost half of all shoppers in Europe and global even think that sustainability more important to them. So they are looking for sustainable labels on the products when they go into the supermarkets. Also, because of that trend, some new research, market research agencies developed the new segmentation about consumers, and they now talk about ecoactives. Those ecoactives are European and global consumers who are concerned about the environment. Those are people are looking at the eco labels when they buy the product. They see if the packaging is recyclable. Also, some of them like to see who is producing their products. If the buyers are if buyers are thinking, importers are also taking care about the whole supply chain, starting from farmers, if workers are well paid, etc. About sustainability, we must say that it is now on the official European agenda, and it resulted the last year in the official strategy of the European Union. European Union formed a couple of strategies, which are all part of something which is called European Green Deal. And the most important for at least dried mango sourcing are two of them. One is called Farm to Fork Strategy, and another one is a biodiversity strategy. And what does it mean for us? I mean for us as mango producers, it means that European Union is gradually to reduce the use of pesticides on all food products in Europe. It doesn't mean that they need to be produced in Europe. Also, it is related to all products, also imported. So 50% less pesticide will be used until 2030. Some of pesticides will be banned. Carbon emission reduction during production will be reduced. The aim of the strategy is that the European Union become the first region in the world completely carbon neutral. Sustainable packaging will be more important. Not only in this stage, it is more focused on the retail packaging, but we expect that in the future also export bulk packaging will become more sustainable, recyclable, etc. New labeling is appearing on the European market. So now we have like nutri-labeling schemes telling producers about nutritional elements inside of the food they buy. But also now we see another eco-labeling elements that buyers can choose product according to the impact of the nature, environment, and society. And so because of that, we all expect more type of certification coming in the next years. About certifications, those are just some of new examples. Now we see, for example, types of certification. On this slide, you see, for example, My Climate and the Verify Carbon standard, but we expect more, which tells about carbon emission. This is a new one regarding sustainability. Some of them can be related to forest resources, like Rainforest Alliance. Some of them will tell more about bio-based and recyclable packaging, like, for example, this OK bio-based from TÜV from Austria. And we are already familiar with some of the social and ethical focus certifications like Fair Trade or SEDEX from SMETA. And of course, organic and pesticide-free trend is going to continue, so more and more products on the European market will be organic. As a part of the European Green Deal, European Union is planning to increase the 25% of all agricultural land inside Europe to be organic until 2025. And when we talk a little bit more about dried mango sustainability trends, we see that there is increasing number of fair trade certified suppliers. At the moment, we have like 10 suppliers in Burkina Faso, 2 in India, 2 in Sri Lanka, but we guess that this number is going to increase in the future. And some European companies are actually making their own private initiatives in this fair trade segment. For example, German company Rapunzel had their own program, which is called Hand in Hand. And they, for example, they work with one company in Burkina Faso, specifically in dried mango segment, taking care about women employment, about fair treatment of the labor in the drying factories, etc. Another trend is increasing share of the organic offer, and it is especially evident in Burkina Faso because at the moment Burkina Faso is the largest exporter of dried mango in the world, but organic certification is also spreading to other countries. Other mango trend is actually healthy snacking. As we see during the COVID-19 pandemic, many people, because of lockdown measures, started to snack more. Some of those snacking trends are mainly to satisfy your need for sweet and to enjoy, but also people think about healthy alternatives, and the dried mango no added sugar is one of them. Clean label like sulfate-free and organic are continuing, although it's not always very easy to make the very attractive looking sulfate-free mangoes. If you make it organic, sometimes you need to have very good technology to make it very soft and to have the nice orange color. So it is kind of conflicting trends, but producers are improving their offer. Like a couple of years ago, most of dried mango, which are organic produced in Burkina Faso, were harder to chew compared, for example, to conventionally produced mango in South Africa. But now situation is slowly changing. People in Burkina Faso also improving technology and are able to produce more soft mangoes. And we see a lot of new products launches like fruit bars and soft dried mango. For example, for soft dried mango, the similar technology which is used in production of prunes is used, kind of rehydration and user and preservatives. And we see kind of new interesting snacks like rolls, sticks, balls, cubes, chips. And another technology is actually freeze-dried mangoes. Those products are very attractive for the producers of mueslis and other type of breakfast cereals. But here we talk about completely another technology where the starting material is actually frozen mango cubes, which are freeze-dried and after that they exported. We expect that this freeze-dried market is going to increase as a very high rate, although the share of the market at the moment is very small. Breakfast cereals are incorporating dried mango in their tropical mixtures, although still many of them are using sweetened or sugar-infused dried mangoes. in those breakfast cereals mixtures. Now I will move about legal requirements part. I think that our guest will tell a little bit more about their own type of requirements and how they source dried mangoes. But just to remind you that one of the major issues in dried mango market is contaminant with foreign bodies. So people in Europe often find unallowed pieces of stone, pieces of pit of the mango. Also, sometimes we can even find bugs, living bugs, moving through the bags of the dried mangoes, etc. So this contamination with the foreign bodies is very important to control. So it is important to have very good monitoring of the production process. Another requirement that we see is that pesticide residues are decreasing, and each year European Union is announcing new limits and many pesticides. I mentioned here only a few which are completely banned from the European Union. Some of them were used also to spray the mangoes. In farms, microbiological contaminants can be also one of the issues, so suppliers must have some kind of HACCP system in implementation. About product composition, we must say that when you label your dried mango as a natural one and 100% dried mango, perhaps with preservative, no artificial colors are allowed. Other way, it can be called like food fraud and even food criminal. If you are infusing your dried mango with sugar, it must be declared, and a certain percentage of sugar used in it must be also labeled. And you need to control application of preservatives. For example, maximum allowed limit of sulfates is 100 milligrams per kilo, and in some cases, European buyers, after laboratory tests, find more, and unfortunately, they must take it out from the market. About companies that are placing dried mango in the retail packaging, there is a regulation about food information for consumers, where nutritional profile and allergens must be labeled. Allergens are only sulfates in dried mango. New requirement also is to place the indication of origin, but at this moment we cannot see a lot of dried mangoes placed inside retail packaging because the common packaging is bulk, and after that it is repacked in Europe. Perhaps the only exception is a dried mango packed for the ethical stores, like Asian type of supermarkets, when we can even see some mangoes packed usually in Asia, like Thailand and Philippines, often sweetened directly in the country of origin. And when you talk about the requirements, I think TS and Olivier will say more about that, but I just have to say that each buyer has own requirements, but some in general can be found of the UNECE standard, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and it is very common to do the laboratory tests from the sample. Moisture content is important. For example, in this one standard, natural dried mango moisture must be below 15%. For treated with sulfates, it can be more. And for soft mangoes, it is between 30 and 35%. Softness is very important, and I think one field of competition now in the market is how to produce mangoes which are soft enough to be nice to chew. And I didn't mention, of course, taste is very important, but it is quite subjective. So it's now some of the producers are searching for the specific new exotic varieties which can offer a new experience when eat it. And one important request is, of course, food safety certification. So we have many in place, like BRC is more common in UK, but also used in all other parts in Europe. IFS is more common in Germany and France. FSSC used in many countries. I already mentioned organic and sustainability and ethics certifications are really increasing. And about price and delivery terms, I think that our guest speakers will tell more. And before we continue, I will just show you our rough estimation about consumption. And actually, it is maybe more about imports, not only about consumption, because consumption data are very difficult to collect because market research agencies sometimes do not include ethical supermarkets, ethnical, sorry, like Asian one, or I don't know, sometimes they do not include the consumption of the food industry, for example, for breakfast cereals, etc. But this is kind of more or less like, I would say, good estimation, but we can tell about more. So this is the size of the 6th largest market in Europe. And we can tell more about 2 of them. So Tonia, you can take from here.
Thank you. And we are going to tell you more about the markets, but we would like to know from you, which markets do you want to know more about? So Alexander is still on standby, and I'm going to launch a poll right now to ask you, which one do you want to know more about? Okay, clear preference so far. We have about 1/3 of our attendees that has voted. I'm just going to leave it open for a few more seconds. Right now, about 75% of you have voted. And give you the chance to fill it out. I'm going to be closing it in 3, 2, 1. Thank you for voting. And let me just share the results. So we have almost a tie between Germany and the United Kingdom. And there's also a lot of interest in the Netherlands. Alexander, looking at the time, I think you said that for the United Kingdom, you wanted to give a very brief presentation because we're going to be hearing from Olivier. Is there any way you think that we could include the Netherlands in your presentation as well? A very quick and brief overview.
Yeah, I can say a couple of sentences, of course, but as you see,
I promise I won't cut you off with the time. I will allow you a couple of more minutes to say something.
Okay. As you see, I'm already talking quite fast. I mean, I'm sorry for that. But because I have so much to tell, actually, it's very difficult to say it in a couple of minutes. So let's start with Germany.
We are very excited to share all this information with you. So without any further ado, Alexander, please go on.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Germany, a couple of years ago, the United Kingdom was the largest market in Europe, but now we have some reasons to believe that maybe the import of Germany overpassed the UK. And it shows kind of steady market growth, although we don't have exact data, and perhaps the import in the last year overpassed 1.8 thousand tons. But it doesn't mean that all of those dried mangoes finish in Germany. Many of them are actually re-exported to some other countries. And we have many importers in Germany, wholesalers and agents, especially in Hamburg, which are specialized for supplying supermarkets around Europe. They regularly participate in the public calls of the supermarkets each year to cooperate and to pack for private labels. When we estimate the supply to Germany, we think that Burkina Faso has more than 70% presence in quantity, and the next one is South Africa, then Ghana, India, Thailand, and others. Also, we must say that, for example, some of the German importers and wholesalers also are supplied by Switzerland, because one of the big Swiss companies are present in Ghana, and also from the last year also in Ivory Coast. This is the quite a long way how it reached in the German, how the dry mango reached the German market. Also, we have new appearance, for example, from Peru, from Ecuador, from Mexico, but South America is present on the very low level, especially because of the high prices. Let's say in this moment that South America is quite famous by the high quality dried mangoes, but the prices are usually much higher compared to African. And Germans are quite price sensitive consumers, so they select the best option for them. Because Germany is price competitive market, and also it is a result of the quite big influence of hard discounters in Germany, like Lidl, Aldi, etc. We must say that German importers and the retailers has very high requirements. IFS is preferred certification in Germany. Germany is the largest organic market in Europe, also offering quite a lot of opportunities. And also there is kind of above organic niche in Germany. For example, Germany is famous by the Demeter certification, biodynamic, which includes more requirements compared to standard organic certification. Also, private retailers have own requests, and fair trade number of companies in Germany is constantly increasing. Although, for example, the UK is the largest fair trade market in Europe, we have more German fair trade certified traders in Germany than in the UK. Because of the ethical and sustainability requests, there are possibility for long-term partnerships for sourcing programs, especially for organic products. I mentioned just one, like Hand in Hand or Rapunzel, but there is also Bio7 initiatives, etc. for organic. And now just mention a few brands, companies, and segments. In Germany, we have a large share of private labels, and I mentioned Lidl, Aldi Nord, and Aldi Süd as the big discounters. And those discounters, when they started to offer dried mango, only I think maybe 2 years ago, before that you could not find the dried mango in those retailers, market in Germany increased a lot. Those retailers are working on they are making the public calls for the companies they are going to supply them, and so supplies can be changed from year to year, and it's not easy to enter this segment because you need to fill like maybe more than 50 papers, and there are a lot of requests, etc. A leading brand in Germany is Seeberger, and followers are Farmer Snack, Morgenland, it is organic brand owned by company Egesan, Rapunzel Organic, and we have also a lot of organic retail private labels. Germany is the largest market for the specialized supermarket chains. So we have a couple of them like Biomarkt, DM or Alnatura, which are specifically selling organic products. And each of them have dried mangoes packed in private label packaging. And also we have quite a lot of ethnic, especially Asian shops, which sell small quantities of Asian, currently mostly Philippines origin. Like for example, Go Asia is a big retail chain specialized for selling food from Asia. In dried food processing segment is still quite small. I don't know the right number, but I'm quite sure that more than 80% of dried mango is natural dried mango is sold as a snack. And just note that we are not talking here about candied mangoes. It is completely another product where the sugar content is more than 50%. We're talking about natural dried mangoes, and also market has some sweetened dried mangoes, but when we say sweetened, it means like 10% maximum sugar, not really candied. And food processing is now offering a lot of fruit bars, which contains dried mango. But be careful when offering this product, because it is very often not actually product made by dried mango, but because original material is mango puree. And by dehydration of mango puree, you can get this nice fruit snack. But on the other hand, we also have products made by the dried mango pieces inside. And food service at the moment is not really a big segment when we talk about restaurants, but when we talk about catering, because of the COVID-19 and home consumption, it increases a lot. If we count catering and bringing food from home, from stores to home. And another market, I will very shortly tell about it, because we have Olivier from Whitworths, who is the expert about UK market, is the largest brand in Europe now. I estimated consumption at 1.2 or 1.3 thousand tons, and I think Olivier confirmed that it was kind of right estimation. Difference between UK and Germany, because UK is consuming most of the mango which is imported, while on the other hand, Germany is quite a large re-exporter. South Africa a couple of years ago was the dominant supplier, but now it's changing a lot. Now we also have a lot of offer from Burkina Faso, and the largest South African supplier, Westphalia, they have actually the UK sales office, which is a company called Greencell, which was one of the most responsible for developing dry mango market in Europe. We don't have a lot of importers in the UK compared to Germany. This is the main difference, and the UK was the first market in Europe to develop, especially Whitworths. I must say the Philippine Carabao mango offer a specific variety with a little bit different taste and sold as a premium. And also in the UK, we still have quite a big presence of sweetened dried mango from Thailand compared to other markets, but Thailand is present everywhere also with those candied fruit. Yeah, I think Olivier will say more about certification, and I can say that Whitworths is the dominant brand. We have also some others like Forest Feast, and the most quantities are sold through private labels. But here we see that the same companies, very often same companies which have own brands, are also packing for private labels, and we see some developments of the new products, etc. But let's Olivier say more. I will just move to Netherlands. Import in the Netherlands is perhaps more than 1,000 tons, but consumption is much less than that because it is big re-exporter of dried mango. I think that more than 70% of important quantities are re-exported to another European countries. And what is specific and characteristic that maybe the Netherlands is the country with the largest presence of different countries. I mean, the market structure is still similar like in Germany, UK, dominated by Burkina Faso, followed by South Africa and Ghana. But we in Netherlands, we see a lot of new origins like Gambia, Peru, Mozambique, Ivory Coast, Mali, Ecuador. Also, we have big wholesalers of the sweetened dried mango from Thailand. Also, certification of organic is very important. And I would say that Netherlands is a country which really push sustainability requests. So it is a home actually of a couple of sustainability initiatives. And here I mentioned a couple of importers. For example, some of the very large, one of the largest organic traders in the world, like Trading Organic and Gebana, are present in the Netherlands. So this will be my very short snapshot of the three large markets of Europe. So Tonia, you can continue.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Alexander, and thank you for going through the presentation so quickly. I would like to move to a very short and our first Q&A session. Just a minute, and I would like to invite Ties and Olivier to join us on screen as well. There you are, welcome. And there is my screen as well. Okay, we have a number of questions that have come in actually, and to our audience, please do feel free to keep asking your questions, because if we cannot get to them in this Q&A, we're going to try our best to get to them in the second Q&A. So please do share your questions. There are a lot of questions that have come in about practical issues. So, for example, what kind of machines to use? What kind of packaging do you recommend? What kind of alternatives are there for sulfites, for example? Olivier and Ties, I'm not entirely sure if those are topics that are going to be addressed in your presentations. Maybe you could say something about the use of machines or sulfites, packaging. Ties?
Well, yeah, in terms of machines, obviously the heart of a factory is the dryers, and there's different technologies that you can use. Electricity is one. It's the least common one. I would say that the quality is very high, but it's very expensive, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Another one which is widely used in West Africa is gas. So yeah, you just put on the gas. It's also relatively expensive, but it's doable. I think the latest trend is more to work with biomass. So you can use waste streams and burn that in a boiler and then produce hot air from that. It's you have to know what you're doing, so it's maybe a little bit more difficult, but in the end I would say that would be probably the best way to go.
Olivier, would you have any recommendations?
On machines, not necessarily, it's not my area of expertise, but on packaging, what I can share with you, which is probably not going to come as a surprise, is the retail market is moving more and more into recyclable. It's fair to say that at this moment in time, especially for the UK, there's no clear direction as to it, whether it should be compostable or reusable. So it's not very clear, but the movement is just going in one direction. So we're seeing a switch away from the conventional packaging to recyclable. Probably within the next 2 years or so, it will be fully recyclable in the market.
Okay, that's very interesting. And Aleksander, is this anything that you have run into in your market research?
Yeah, actually, I can say something about both topics. I think the first one about machines is actually that the dried mango market is firstly developed by South African companies which were very experienced in the prunes production. So I think it's very easy to look about type of tunnels and technology that prune producers are doing in France, in Chile, in the United States, and for example in Europe, in France, there is also kind of auction for the used machines. So actually this is the type of machine that I mean for the primary drying without rehydration. Also this is I think almost the same technology, not the same but very similar. And about producing preservative-free mangoes, this can give opportunities for the what we don't see currently a lot on the market is requests for the packed mangoes, because one way to make the preservative-free mango is to pack it directly in the retail packaging, and after that to sterilize it. But we this product has a lower shelf life compared to preservative not free, but with normal.
That and also okay with regular preservatives.
Yeah. So this is a technology for this product. You also need to have the special type of container which can resist the heat, and this is something that we need. What we see now in the market of all other dried products like dried apricots from Turkey, also dried prunes from United States and other origins. For example, we have those products which are packed in the origin and after that sterilized, pasteurized, and after that shipped to the EU. So this is one of the ways. Sorry.
And I think that ties into a comment that we received from Sarah. She says, I believe the market trend is changing on how dry mango is delivered to the EU customer. And Sarah doesn't mention which company she's from, but she says, we are finding much more demand for retail packed exports as compared to bulk exports. So customers source their packaging locally. We pack and export shelf ready product. going into mainstream supermarkets in Southern and Northern Europe. And I think that basically confirms what you were just saying, Aleksander, that
I think that we are going to see this trend in the future more and more, because the labor cost in Europe is becoming more and more expensive. So people are trying, buyers are trying to find good solutions. But they will test your packaging and your options and quality, and of course, it's not easy to be selected. But I think this trend is going to increase in Europe, definitely.
Okay, not easy to be selected. I am very interested to hear what Olivier is going to tell us in his presentation and what Thies's experiences are with getting selected. Is there a difference between freeze-dried and heat-dried product? Who would take that?
I don't know who, if it is aimed to me. Maybe I was talking too fast, but I think I already explained that it is completely different product. For the freeze-dried product, usually you use the frozen cubes, but also it can be other types of frozen products. So you need to have the freezing capacity. So raw material is not is already freezed mango, and after that, this product is placed in the special tunnels for freeze drying, which are using the process which is called lyophilization, which means that the moisture is evaporated directly from the frozen product, and the shape is staying the same. Those machines are working under high pressure, and they are, let's say, relatively expensive machines, but at the moment a lot of Chinese companies are offering those machines for freeze drying. Freeze drying market in Europe is not, in terms of volume, is not very high, but also it is very light product. For example, if you fill in one container with dried mango, or like 20-feet container, it will be heavy. I mean, I think only about a couple of tons instead of 20 tons. Like with the natural dried products, it will be weighted only maybe 2 tons.
Okay.
Because it's a very light one, but it is also a very expensive product.
Okay, good to know. And Aleksander, sorry, not Aleksander, Olivier, segueing on from what Aleksander just said, are there any varieties that are highly in demand on the market?
I would say there's 2 main varieties. You've got the kids one, which is mostly used, and it's because of the taste and the texture, which is appreciated. And when you look at our market specifically, I think the Caribbean one has got a very captive market. So interestingly, we had to switch away temporarily from the Philippines because of the challenges we had on supply chain that everybody is aware of temporarily, and puts the Burkina Faso in there. And we had a lot of complaints from the customer. So I think the consumer who's buying this product is looking at the specific texture and taste, and they don't like change. And that's very specific to this product. And we don't see that much on other dried fruits.
Okay, that's interesting. And that, for reference, for clarity, Olivier, when this answer that you gave, this is mainly the UK market, correct?
Yes, it is the UK market. I can't speak for the European market, unfortunately.
Who knows? It might come in the future. Thies, maybe you could add here, as an exporter, what do you see in terms of varieties and in terms of consumer interest and taste?
Well, there are sometimes buyers that ask specifically for a variety. As an exporter, as a producer, it's not really a nice question, because you know, it's agriculture. So sometimes you've got a bit more of your Tommy Atkins or your Kents or your Keats or Brooks or whatever you have in your portfolio. So you don't want to tie everything to one variety, to one customer. So yeah, so from my side, I'm not promoting that to separate that, but I understand that there are preferences. Actually, having a mix is actually quite successful as well. There are some slight taste differences in one package, and that's perceived quite well actually with the customers. So that's the way to go for us, I would say.
So basically you are saying that you combine different varieties of mango in the dried mango package. You don't sell as a particular variety.
Yes, that's what we do. Yeah.
Sounds smart. Looking at the time, we have a lot of other questions, but looking at the time, I would very much like to invite Olivier to stay on for now as we move to the next presentation. And after that, we will hear from Ties. And after Ties's presentation, we're going to come back to a second Q&A session where we're going to answer the questions that we did not get around to and any additional questions that you may have. So please keep informing us. Please keep sharing your questions with us. And Olivier, I am making you a presenter, transferring presenter rights to you so that you can share your presentation with us.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to take you through what are the key things we are looking into when bringing supplier for mango into our business and probably extensively in the UK. But before that, I'm just going to give you a bit of background on our business and on the UK market with a few numbers. So the first thing is Whitworths is the largest supplier of dried fruit and nuts in the UK. We've got a very long heritage since 1886. We are also the largest brand in the UK with about £50 million worth of sales. Our turnover is about 145 million. I think the key message for me is our purpose, which is to help everyone eat a little healthier every day, which is in line with the trend we see in our market, with a very high demand for healthier snacking in the UK. So first of all, a few numbers, a few information about the sorry about that. A few information about the volumes in the UK. So the total volumes, as Alexander said, is around 1,100 tons. These numbers are mainly for the retail market. The retail market in the UK is probably 90% of consumption of mango. So this is a very important part of our imports, and the retail value is close to £20 million. It's fair to say that the UK is very highly driven by private label, which is about 2/3 of the volumes. And as you can see, Tesco is still by far the largest consumer of mango. In terms of volumes, it's quite interesting to see that after a period where consumption was relatively stable, if not decreasing, all of a sudden we've seen a massive jump in snacking. And I think it's a combination of two things. First one is, as highlighted by Alexander a bit earlier, the impact of COVID and people snacking at home. The second aspect is a very high demand for healthier products. And dried fruits are part of the agenda to help people move to more healthy snacking. And we are seeing that impacting sales on products such as dried mango. When it comes to Whitworths, so we are about 1/3 of the volumes in the UK. We're mainly importing our volumes from Africa and mainly Burkina Faso, a little bit from South Africa or Ghana as an alternative when we've got challenges of supply, and also Ivory Coast. And then the Philippines, which used to be a much bigger part of our imports, but the problem of the Philippine origin is the price is substantially more expensive. And as the UK market is extremely competitive, the retailers are looking for cheaper options all the time. And then on the right, as you can see, brands is about 20% of our sales, but on label is the main destination for mango in the UK. So taking you through the approval process, I'm just going to pinpoint a few specific aspects as opposed to take you through every single one of them. So the first thing, obviously, when we look at importing any products, not specific to mango, we look at the capability, and within that, you've got several factors we are examining quite closely. You've got the financial aspect, and it's about whether you've got the strength to supply us in the future, but also whether you can provide credit. It's very important in the UK to have access to credit. These products are expensive. And obviously, from the time you receive the goods to the time you get paid by the retailer, you've got up to 90 days. So it's an important part of the approval process. Technical is obviously key, and I'll come back a bit later on a few specific aspects on that. We need references. We need to know that you can be reliable. It doesn't mean that it's not necessarily about whether you can supply or not, but it's about can you actually sustain supply throughout the whole season? That's a very important point. And can you supply consistent quality throughout the season? Because it's one of the key challenges we've faced into when importing this product. Moving on to commercial, there's nothing that you've not heard about there. I guess the flexibility is a very important point because we've got a huge volatility in terms of demand from the retail industry, and we've seen that even more during COVID. So it's about how quickly can you turn around your shipments if we need to pull them forward or push them backwards. We also like to work with volume options. Obviously, it's a very seasonal product. And more often than not, when you come to the end of the season, you can find yourself in a situation where you're a bit short on volumes between the two crops. So we also need to have some flexibility in the contractual terms with a plus or minus approach in terms of what can be supplied. Contractually, it's quite straightforward. We need to set up the accounts, we need to set up the material in the system, and then we create a supplier agreement, which is effectively a contract. Now, the reason I put that in there is because it can take a little bit of time just for business to set that up. And finally, it's all about the call-offs, delivering, and the payments, and obviously the QC, the quality checks on arrival. A bit more information into the technical approval process. This is a Whitworths one, and this is something we are communicating through our welcome pack that we send to our suppliers with all our ways of operating. I would expect most of it to be quite close to what other companies are doing in the UK, if not in the EU. But basically, the first step in the approval process is to review all the documentation. So it's around your SAQs, it's around the third-party audit reports, all the certificates you may have, such as BRC, IFS, etc. We look into the supply chain mapping, and obviously we provide the specifications we are looking for. This is then reviewed at Whitworths by our supply chain technical team. It goes then into a risk assessment process, and this is where we are asking, and it's a very, very important point, especially for the UK retailers. We cannot supply the UK retailers without having at least EU approved by SEDEX, sorry, registered on SEDEX. And more, the retailers are now asking for SMETA audits, which are third-party audits, which SMETA, as you probably know, is just the auditing arm for SEDEX. We can see the trend going forward where everybody will be required to provide SMETA audit. This is really important. It's all around ethical sourcing. And it's a very, very strong emphasis in the UK at the moment and probably for the foreseeable future. Then we go into the approval process to supply by Whitworths, which is purely internal. We then present all this key information and the samples to the customer for approval. And once the customer gives us the go-ahead, then we approve you to supply us. Now, some of the key challenges we are facing. So the first one in the supply chain is, well, the first one is the minimum order quantity. I mean, for us, it's not necessarily a big issue. As you saw a bit earlier, we're importing about 400 tons. So we can easily do full containers. Now, bear in mind that these volumes are still quite small in the grand scheme of things. So many people will require specific minimum order quantities which may not reach a container. So you may need to go through other channels to sell into this market. Obviously, and it's specific to what we are all facing into at the moment, it's a freight cost. Now, it's not affected Africa that much coming from the Philippines. It's been a massive impact. So a container in the Philippines went from somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 to something like $16,000. So that has obviously a massive impact on the supply chain. The second one is obviously shipping delays, again, that we're all experiencing. And again, I would argue it's not affecting Africa as much as the Philippines or Thailand. Now, obviously, there's also the shipping times itself, so it's a bit shorter and quicker to get from Burkina Faso into Europe. And it's probably an advantage going forward in the economy, which is going to look at the sustainable aspect of their business as well compared to Asia. The most important one, I would argue, is the seasonality, which is also linked to the demand volatility. The fact we've got to mainly book the products for the food season is quite a challenge for us because retailers' demand can fluctuate quite dramatically. This is where there's a lot of work which needs to happen beforehand with the supplier to build plans to ensure that we don't fall short at the end of the season. We've been caught once or twice, especially during COVID, and it's a very difficult place when you're at the end of the season to try to find volumes in the market. So if you can provide the flexibility to your customer, then you will find that you'll be more successful in getting their support. The other aspect is manufacturing and technical. Now, Aleksander spoke about a few aspects. I'm going to try to summarize them here. The first one is stickiness. The main challenge we are facing, especially in the factories, we end up having to break by hand the products. And as Aleksander said, it costs a lot of money to do that. And it's just because of the irregularity of ripeness we are finding throughout the consignments we are receiving. So quality is not consistent enough. The ripeness is not consistent enough, which is creating a lot of issues. Or they are too ripe, in which case there is more sugar and they clump together. So that's a very, very, very big challenge to pack these products into retail packs. Then you've got the challenges, which is around the varieties. And so we heard about mixing varieties. We don't like that very much because that creates more challenges into the factory for us. So we actually want to have consistency in the variety we're receiving. The cut size needs to be relatively regular so that the aspect looks consistent to the customer. The texture is really important. I'll show you a few pictures in a moment, but basically we've got some challenges sometimes with a very chewy product, and our customers don't like that and they complain about it. And last but not least is around foreign bodies. So just a few pictures of what I would say that looks like. The first one on the top left is basically, you can't see very much on the screen, but it's pieces of plastic. So it's a plastic bag that is the packaging used to deliver the product, which is sticking to the dried mango. That is an issue. The bottom left is the maggots in the products. The middle top is a product which is dried and very chewy. The bottom middle is hair presence in the product, and the right side is inconsistency, as I explained earlier, in terms of ripeness of the product in the consignment that we have then to remove, otherwise we get customer complaints. So there's a lot of challenges attached to this product, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to tackle these. Now, I thought I would share with you a bit of information in terms of how to approach the markets. The first thing is about thinking, do you want to go direct or indirect? And the implications are quite substantial. Obviously, if you go direct, you're going to be heavily scrutinized in terms of technical aspects and other aspects. Not saying that indirect you're not, but because you're going to be closer to the retailer, you're going to have to supply a lot more information from a technical perspective. So what we recommend you to do is to make sure you've got a proper presentation of your company. More often than not, and too often, we're just receiving a message from somewhere in the world saying, hey, we're having mango, do you fancy buying some, kind of thing. That doesn't go down very well with our businesses. We need to have the background of your company, more information about your credentials. We need references from people we can contact in the business to know how you're performing in supplying them. You need to demonstrate you've got the correct accreditations. If you come to the UK without a BRCI or IFS, usually it's very difficult to make business with someone who's selling it to a retailer. You need to demonstrate your financial strengths, obviously, especially for a product which is a seasonal one. We can't afford to lose you during the season and end up with having no products on the shelf. Credit terms, as I mentioned earlier, and a few things which are really, I think, more of a business approach, which is know who you are talking to, know how to approach them, and know what to offer to them. Very often we're approached by companies who don't even know who Whitworths is or how we're operating or what we're doing in this market. And usually it's straight away, it cuts the conversation short and you get no chance of do your homework, get some information about your potential customer to understand what they're expecting, because you'll be able to provide them with things that they are looking for. And more importantly, listen to them. We know we are quite painful and demanding, but we're just a reflection of what the consumer is asking to us. So it's really important to take into consideration what we are putting on the table when we are talking about doing business together.
Olivier, you have about 1 more minute.
And I'm almost finished, so it's perfect. So in terms of how to approach the markets, you've got the trade associations you are probably familiar with. The INC and FULCOM for International and Europe, Varieties in Germany, the NDFTA in the UK, and the NZB in the Netherlands. You can contact this association to get contact details, information of people who would be interested in your products. But then in terms of trade shows, you probably know most of them, but I'm going to go through them. The IFA in London, Nugar Biofar in Germany, Snackex and Alimentaria, the Food Expo in Greece, and the PLMA in the Netherlands. So these are ways where you can approach customers as well. And if you want to contact Whitworths, these are our contact details. Please feel free to let us know if you would like to supply us with mango. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Olivier. And I would like to invite Ties to come online. And Olivier, we will be getting back to you during the Q&A session. Ties, there you are. And we agreed that I would move your slides. So here's your introductory slide. And shall I move it to the next one so you can kick off your presentation?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, so about 5 years ago, we started Afrifruta in Mozambique, and actually the reason was that there was a lot of mangoes going to waste. In the Portuguese time, the whole province was put full of mango trees, and yeah, now currently they're owned by the local communities, and there was no use for them. So we saw on the one side a business opportunity there, and on the other hand an opportunity to have great impact there as well. So how we've structured it, we've got our factory in Mozambique, we've got the sales office in the Netherlands where I am based, and we've got an entity in South Africa to facilitate both the trade there as well as imports and other things. Yeah, some figures about our factory. It's 1,500 square meters. We've got 5 dryers, 3 cold rooms, of which 2 big ones outside of the factory. We have internalized our transport, so we've got our own cold truck, which is good to ensure that we've got we don't break the cold chain and that the quality is assured, and that we have more under our own management. BRC, we have been working on that. So that's one of the GFSI standards that has been mentioned by both Olivier and Aleksander. I mean, it will just help you a lot, giving the comfort to the buyer that everything is well arranged in your factory. What we're doing now, we're introducing new varieties. We've got one dominant variety in the area, and we are introducing new varieties to increase our production window. We're doing that with the communities. So basically what we do, we cut down trees that are underperforming, and then we graft these new varieties on them. And at the same time, we are starting up a plantation so we've got multiple sources to increase security of supplying. All right, Tonya, you can go to the next one. Yeah, so this webinar is mostly focused on how to sell your product. So the way we've structured this is we've got an entity. It's called Mango Impact in the Netherlands. So we have presence in Europe. We've got an office here, and everything that's produced in Mozambique is sold via this route. There's also 2 other factories from West Africa that we represent, but it's we set it up for our own production initially. I would also say, looking at other players in the market, especially the bigger ones, they probably all have an office in Europe, or they've got a close agent they're working with. It's something that's I think gives some comfort to any buyers that somebody's close by, and it will make things much easier. I'm not necessarily saying that everybody should do this. I think if you're a bit smaller, or if you are starting up, there's different routes. I mean, you can have somebody as an agent for you, or you can sell it to a local champion, so the bigger exporters in your country. The advantage of that route, I would say, is as Olivier also showed, sometimes things are wrong, and if you sell it to somebody in your country, you can go directly to them if something is wrong, and you can even do a second selection or something like that. The disadvantage is that you might have a lower price, but I definitely in the beginning I would recommend to look at that option. So what's the advantages of our model? That's what I'm most acquainted with. Is that this direct face-to-face contact is just making the huge difference. It's easy to just pass by, either to discuss business or if there's any issue. We attend all the fairs, all the relevant fairs, obviously, and also we facilitate imports ourselves. So sometimes buyers they just want to have it delivered at their warehouse, so that's what we can facilitate then, and we can even combine container loads. So if you've got like 2 5-ton customers, you can put it in one container, and you can also serve them. Yeah, so selling points, I think most are already touched by the previous talkers, but well, obviously price, especially in the beginning, don't go too high. Also going too low is also not recommendable in the long term. It might bite you. It's not you can't rectify that easy. But then quality, I think that's properly covered by Olivier. I won't put any time in that. GFSI certification, that's the BRC IFS. I wouldn't say to do that from day one. It's not an easy certificate to get. You'll have some infrastructural things you have to work on. You'll have a lot of protocols to work on, but it's something that you can implement it from the start. It's actually a very good guideline to make sure that your quality and your food safety is going to be a high standard from the start on. But it's definitely something to work towards too. Organic certification will expand your opportunities to sell it. There's no sulfur applied to it, so the color is a little bit can be a bit more off. So if you sell that as conventional, just be careful that you don't get any complaints, I would say. So be very clear about what you're selling if you're selling it as conventional. And the last 2 points, I think those are very important, being reliable and honest in the long term. I mean, if you, it can take quite some effort to get your foot between the door and to get in somewhere. But yeah, the only way is to keep that like that is don't overpromise stuff. So it's agriculture. 1 year you will have 100, and the next year you have 120, and the year after that you can have 70 or 80. So don't promise more than you can actually deliver, and just explain how it works, and it's be realistic about it. And if there's any problem, also don't be too difficult about it, and be helpful, and that's the way to go. Yeah, the last thing I want to emphasize is also why CBI is putting attention to this the topic. Dried mango is actually perfect impact crop. So there's a huge number of people that is involved in the supply chain. If I look at Mozambique, we've got about 3,000 suppliers. It's not only mango, I must say, it's also coconut. We've got some other tropical fruits. But it's actually creating so much impact to so many people. Also, the number of people working in the factory is, so it's important to realize that, I would say, and also appreciate that yeah, some people in this webinar are already in a position that they can make decisions, and that they have some influence in it. But it's a privilege to be able to make this kind of changes, and it will it also gives you more satisfaction and meaning in what you're doing for work than only focusing on profit. So that's what I wanted to end with. Tonia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ties. And we are now going to move into our second Q&A session. And there have been a lot of questions that are coming up in the questions tab. Hey, Ties, where did you go? Please come back. And I would also like to invite Olivier, Alexander, and the program manager from CBI, Jeannette, to join us in the second Q&A session. Olivier, to kick off a question for you. In terms of some of the innovations that you've seen in the dried mango space, what innovation are you expecting to see in the near future?
That's a very good question. I think one segment which is interesting is a kids area, especially in the UK. So we've got a lot of lunch boxes going into schools, and it's fair to say that dried foods is a big part of it. So an awful lot of things that can be done for these products in terms of shape, in terms of type of products. So there's an area there, I think, which needs to be investigated and will drive innovation in the future. We're also seeing a lot of infused products, naturally infused, I have to say, not with flavorings. That are quite successful. It's a bit of a niche market for the time being, but fair to say that we're seeing a bit of demand for these products as well. That's probably all I can think about. I'm not quite close to the freeze-dried market. I don't know if anybody else has got some information about that in terms of maybe dried crisps or things like this that we're seeing on vegetables as well. Maybe that's another area for the future.
And maybe that's a good segue to Alexander. Anything to add to what Olivier has just said?
No, actually, yeah. I think yeah, I saw quite a lot of questions about freeze drying, and I explained already a couple of times that it is different technology. I expect that it will be more demanding, but it is different type of factory to produce it. It's not just a simple air drying.
Okay.
But it will be a trend, I think.
One of the trends to expect in the near future. Okay. How about solar drying of mangoes? Are we seeing that? Does it work?
I must say, I don't have any experience with that, so I can't help you with that. I'm sorry.
Too bad.
Yeah, I tried to answer this question. Actually, it was the question for Ties, but I had experience with solar drying in some other dried fruit, in apricots, prunes, I think dates. No, the dates, sorry. But what I see that most of producers, current producers, are refusing it because the current technological solutions are too small. and with one, I don't know, with one normal tunnel in which you place the fresh mangoes. At the end of one shift, you can have several tons of mangoes, dried mangoes, the final product. But in one current solution, when you can place only several kilos of mangoes, and actually it's not really profitable. You have very small output. So currently it is used only for the I'm maybe I'm not the best informed, but what I see, it is sometimes used for the dried herbs, like medical plants, etc. But I didn't see any big investment into dried fruit technology at the moment.
Okay,
but you can search for more. I'm not sure. I cannot claim it that there is no exist. Maybe in the future, because of the ecology and if anything, we can see it more, but not in this moment.
Not at this moment. Okay, so basically keep your eye on the trends because it might become a trend in the near future. Ties, this is a question that you can answer. Do you hold your own stock in Europe via a warehouse, or do all sales go directly from Mozambique to the buyer?
We don't hold stock. I mean, we're not necessarily trading focused. So we are in the first instance, we are a producer. So we try to sell full containers, and we can sometimes import it ourselves and then break it down and then transport it to the different buyers. But it's not that we hold stock. It has never been necessary, actually. So we don't have any reason to do that. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. you could reason maybe if you hold stock, you've got a chance on selling it for a higher price, but it's not something. It's not our business. I mean, it's not something that we do.
Okay, so it doesn't make sense for you to do it if it isn't your business. Following up on the question about innovations, when it comes to dried mango powder and dried mango leather, I had to say that one is new for me. What do you see on the market in terms of marketability and consumer interest? Who would like to take that? Alexander, maybe?
Wow, I think I may be not the best one to ask, but actually I don't know anything about the dried mango leather. This is a new product for me. When we talk about powders, again, there are two types, and again, it is not the same technology. The first one is sprayed dried powder, which is produced by spray drying technology, and the raw material is mango puree again. And another type is powder which can be produced again from the freeze-dried mango. So we talk about completely different technologies. I think it can be important in the future. For example, in the fruit production technology, fruit juice production technology, actually you can use freeze-dried powder, and by official European law, you can label it as a fruit juice, dehydrated fruit juice. So it can save some of the shipping costs, etc. But it is not used so much at the moment. Now we see some product launches such as lemon dried powder, which can because lemon is used as acidity regulator in the juice technology. But I expect that also the demand for the powders will increase. But I don't know what's the question, but they need to understand it is fully another technology and quite expensive usually. Actually, okay. There are a couple of companies in Europe and United States that are using that, especially freeze-dried powders. But spray-dried are also. Usually the companies that already produce juices and purees, which is more advanced, more expensive technology compared to drying, they can invest in that. But I'm not saying that it's not.
It's probably not.
Maybe for small because okay. If you're the small company, you need to find a puree to make it.
Okay, that provides a very interesting segue to a question for Ties, I think. Ties, maybe two questions for you to kick off. One, what was the size of your company, your facility, when you started exporting? And two, you export dried mango, but what do you see in terms of market interest for value-added products like puree, or sorry, not value-added products, but processed products from mango like puree or juice or even powder?
Okay, so the first question, the size. One thing that we did do, we put up a big hole that we had the opportunity to expand in the future. But at the same time, we only started with one dryer, and I'm quite happy that we did it that way, because when you start off, I mean, it is not rocket science, but when you start off, you think you'll be great at it and you won't have any problems. It will all be fine. And then when you start to find out that that there will be problems, and you will have to go through a learning curve. So we had our fair share of things that we had to take as a hit. I mean, but I would say don't start too big, because if something goes wrong, then it will topple you over. And if it's small, you can have your school fees, you can reduce them. And the other advice would be just go on. I mean, the only way to eventually to have the confidence that you had in the beginning, to earn that back, is just to go through all these things, and then eventually you actually know what you're talking about. But you have to go through this process, I would say. And in terms of value-added products, firstly, I would say the dried mango is still a very interesting market, and it's not matured yet. It's growing. That's what my feeling is, and I also think Aleksander's research is more or less saying that it's just a product that you can focus on still as a main thing. Juice. Well, I've studied the market. We've looked at it. It's a very low margin market. I wouldn't necessarily go into that. But the rolls, those are definitely very interesting. We do it on a small scale. We are also starting that up. Some other companies are already quite advanced in that. You can use your pulp or your second grade mangoes that you can't sell as a snack. You can still use that, turn that into value, and that's a great opportunity.
Okay.
But then I would say you have to be a little bit more mature with your factory already. I wouldn't start that from day one.
So basically, best advice, start out with the dried mango, make sure you have everything in place and according to regulations, and from there you can start expanding.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Olivier, any interest in new suppliers?
There's always interest in new suppliers. It's fair to say that when we started selling this product a few years ago, it was a challenge to find the level of volumes we were looking for. Now we can see there's more players coming into the market, and as I explained a bit earlier in my presentation, one of the key things is to get products throughout the year. It's much better for us to work with a few suppliers opposed to work with just one, as it was the case initially. So yes, we're always looking for new suppliers, provided they can supply a product within the specification and the quality that we are looking for.
Okay.
And yes, so please contact us.
Okay, very interesting. And I can tell you that we have seen interest from Cambodia, from Sri Lanka, and from Kenya. And Olivier, you said it's very important to make sure that suppliers can meet the quality requirements, right? So CBI, in terms of helping companies export and become export ready and meet quality requirements, I believe you play a role in it as well. And Jeanette, as program manager of the dried mango program, can you tell us anything about expansion plans? Does CBI work in, for example, Cambodia or Sri Lanka? Are you planning to expand in Asia? What are your plans?
Thank you, Tonia. Yes, I've seen a lot of questions about that. Can you help us get started? Can you share a list of buyers? Can you share a list of manufacturers? And that type of information. CBI has a lot of information available on our website. When looking at expansion plans at the moment, we have a 4-year project in Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, and Mali. This is the only project we have in dried mango, and there are no expansion plans at the moment. We are tied to the Ministry of the Netherlands, who provides our budgets. And I already know that for the Asian countries, there will be difficulties for expansion. Most of the priority goes to Africa at the moment. We look at opportunities. So if I look at the number of registrations from the different countries, this is a sign for us where there are suppliers who are in need of expertise. So we take that very seriously. It's not a quick process. It will take time. So for most of the individuals participating now, we cannot give individual assistance, but we do have the freely available information about the European markets, the tips how to find buyers, for example, on the website.
Okay, and we will be getting to that in just a couple of minutes. So for our viewers in Asia, the bad news is no expansion plans from CBI in the near future. But Olivier shared his email address. So if you are confident that you can meet the quality requirements, I would say make sure to contact Olivier and see if you can become a new supplier. Let's see, there's another question. This one I find really interesting as well, and it's not directed to any particular person of the panel. A general question. Does the panel foresee any issues in the policy horizon from the EU? So in terms of front of pack, nutrition labeling, the ECO score, etc., that could have an impact on the demand for dried mangoes? Who would like to kick off with an answer? Olivier.
I mean, it's not only the EU legislation. There's one point that I will reiterate that I presented a bit earlier, which is don't underestimate the impact of ethical and sustainable going forward. And that's going to be the real key, and that will influence the way we are importing going forward more and more. So if you're not ready, if you don't have the transparency in place, if you don't have your traceability in the right place, you will at some stage struggle to be able to supply the big importers into the EU. And it's fair to say that mango at the moment is mainly going into the retail market, which is extremely demanding when it comes to these aspects. So from my perspective, that's one of the key challenges for the future. Obviously operating in countries where ethical can be a challenge. So it's a watch out area.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm going to ask three last questions because we've already exceeded our time. I'm going to ask three last questions and I'm going to ask our panel to respond to them very briefly before we move over to CBI to show us where to find all the relevant information. Thies, sustainability and impact is a driving trend. All three of the speakers mentioned this during their presentations. Are there any initiatives for the handling of waste? I think Thies commented on biomass as a drying material, but this could also be extended for secondary downstream products such as biochar, I'm not really sure, for the farmers, local use beyond the farmer network or export. Thies, how do you deal with waste?
So waste that comes from the production process, like the pits, the pips, and or coconut shells, they can be used as fuel. So that's a good thing. And yeah, biochar. I mean, obviously the charcoal or the ash that's remained can be used as compost. So that in that sense, it's going back into the system as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, not to cut you off, just trying to keep it very brief as we move towards the end of the webinar. Olivier, what's the definition, what's the difference in terms of organics that's certified and, sorry, this question is a bit confusing the way it's formed. What's the definition of organically certified, the dried mangoes or the fresh produce?
You're catching me off guard. I mean, you would expect the products to be organic from the outset for obvious reason, because it's a fresh mango which is used to be dried. So it's going back to the fields. But I mean, I would expect these to probably, sorry, it is not to put you on the spot, but you're the organic specialist here. You're probably in a better place than me to answer this question.
This is the supplier testing, this is the buyers testing the supplier, just for your information.
Yeah, I must say, organic is not our #1 product anymore. So if I look at the market, it's not that you really get a premium for it. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend to go for organic if you're looking for a premium. It does increase your chances on selling it because you have potentially more buyers. Sorry, am I answering the question, Tonya, or am I drifting off? Huh?
Slightly drifting off, but I think what I understand from your answer and from Olivier's answer, despite him being caught off guard, is that when it comes to organic, it's actually the production process that determines if mango is organic, is qualified to be certified as organic, and not so much whether it's a dried product or whether it's a fresh product.
No, the mango itself has to be organic certified, and then the process itself as well. So you can't add sulfur.
Okay, you cannot add sulfur.
No.
I see Alexander nodding. And Alexander, do you know of any alternatives to sulfur that still preserve the color and appearance, aesthetic appearance? Your sound is off.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. I told that actually not only the sulfur is most used, but we cannot use any type of preservative when we make organic dried mangoes.
Okay.
I think, but your question was about the color preservation. I think the sulfur is currently the best one. So it's not easy. I mean, but maybe it's better to elaborate about different technologies, but we don't have time so much for that. But I must say that sulfur is the best one at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. In other orange colored dried fruit like apricots, it is also used because.
Okay. Does your market study contain any information about preservatives?
Yeah, but only I presented this very shortly. Actually, what is used? There is a link to European legislation listing all that are allowed, but there are not so many actually used apart from potassium metabyl sulfate.
Okay. Thank you for that. Jeanette, I am going to ask you to remain on camera while I thank the rest of our panel before you all disappear. Thank you so much for participating in our panel and being a part of our webinar today. Thank you for sharing your information. Thank you for generously sharing your information and your time with us. We highly appreciate it. Jeanette, may I invite you to show us where we can find the information that was shared today?
Yes, show my screen. So, let me see, it doesn't show. Anyway, CBI celebrates 50 years, hooray. So it's our anniversary year. But what I want to show you is, this is the home screen. So if you click on market information, there is lots of information here on different types of products. So for the mango, the processed mango, this one you want to click on. And then you will have a full page of new studies to choose from. Highly recommended, tips to find buyers, tips to do business. Here's the trend studies. Alexander also talks about general trends for the processed vegetables, edible nuts. And then here is the dried mangoes. Exporting dried mangoes to Europe, market potential, the trends, and the market entry, the tricks. So this is where you can find it. Back to you, Tonya.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jeanette. And for our audience, I would just like to, I'm actually trying to share my screen, but I believe I am not yet the presenter. I need to change that first. So there are a number of webinars that are available on that being organized by CBI. And as you can currently see on the screen, there are 3 more webinars that are planned for the coming week. So if any of these is of interest to you, do make sure to sign up, register, and attend the webinar, or if you cannot attend the webinar, you're going to receive a recording. The same applies to today's webinar. You're going to receive an email after this webinar with a link to the recording, thanks to the wonderful backup team at CBI that has all the technical issues covered. The email is also going to include a link to the market study that Aleksander presented about, and it is going to include the presentations that Ties and Olivier shared with us. So before we leave, I would like to tell you that we are going to be closing. Before we close, we're going to show you a quick survey. We're going to ask you to rate this webinar. How useful was it to you? If you have any recommendations for us, please share those recommendations with us. And just to clarify, if you think the webinar was horrible, give us a 1. If you think the webinar was excellent, give us a 10. And to be honest, we'll probably be happy if you're somewhere, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9, something like that. Anyway, we would really like to thank you for your patience. We have exceeded the time, so we are going to close this webinar now. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you to the backup team at CBI. Thank you for our panelists. Thank you to our experts. And we hope to see you, our appreciated audience, again at another webinar. Have a fantastic day and see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.